Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here. We will be beginning in about 2 minutes. Look at that, and then my welcome screen. Okay, I believe we're ready to go. So, I'd like to start off by saying welcome to part 3 of AESD Learning Management System 101 for Seesaw. We want to remind you that closed captioning is available, and thank you for being here to have closed captioning, as well as you have the opportunity to share questions and answers. And for us today, and she'll introduce herself in a little bit, we do have Amy that will be handling questions and answers. Now, I want to remind you with the question and answers, please keep them about Seesaw and the areas that we're going to be trying to cover today. We will try to get to as many questions as we can, and if there are a number of them around the same topic, I know Steve will stop me and make sure that we are trying to answer those questions live as well. So please, please, please use the Q&A feature. However, if you type in the Q&A feature statements or just things like thank you or personal questions, for example, around clock hours, we most likely will dismiss them to keep the flow of the course, just to let you know. We also want to let you know that we highly recommend you take the on-demand courses. The on-demand courses are available through the Washington Association of Educational Service Districts website, which we will post in the chat. The on-demand courses allow you to cover much more material in a 6-hour time span where you can pause, stop, rewind, and do anything you want with all content within the course, as well as give you every tutorial available to use the tools. So if this went a little too fast, we recommend the on-demand. The on-demand courses will also have the link to take part in the office hours that all the ESDs will run collaboratively, which means you'll be able to ask your questions directly, potentially in a smaller group. So, highly recommend registering for the on-demand courses that will be opening live on the 25th, but registration is available now. Your features today that you need to recognize are that you also have chat available. The chat feature, however, is only for us to send you information, which means we will post links in the chat for you. All links from this session will also be released and sent out to you after the session through your PD Enroller registration. So if you miss the links that are in the chat, don't worry. We're going to send them out in a nice summarized statement after the session, including links to all 3 slide decks. Did I miss anything, Steve, that you can think of? Okay. So with that, we're going to begin Seesaw Part 3. Once again, my name is Andrew Hickman. I'm Regional Administrator of Educational Technology at Capital Region ESD. My co-host today is Steve. Steve, do you want to unmute and introduce yourself?
Hi, Steve Schreiner, Technology and Learning Coordinator at ESD 101 in Spokane.
Thank you, Steve. Glad to have you with us. And answering our Q&A is Amy. Amy, would you like to unmute?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Amy Colburn out of ESD 189 in Anacortes. I'm glad to have you all back for day 3.
Thank you, Amy. And we also have 2 interpreters available for American Sign Language, which their videos will be highlighted, which means spotlighted within Zoom. They will be switching about every 15 minutes. So we also want to thank them for being here today. We want to recognize whose land we are on. We are on the land of the tribal nations of Washington State. We want to spend a moment to recognize and offer our opportunity to think about whose land you are on. We also want to thank those and offer opportunity to reach out to those in your ESDs that represent our leadership team from across the state of Washington. From ESD 101, for example, is Steve, all the way through 189, which is Amy, and we're all here to support you. One of our main jobs is to support our educators any way we can. So when you receive these slide decks, these links are live. They directly email us, and we do offer our support for you any way we can do to help. So these are your contacts to help with your learning management systems at the ESDs. Our series outline today, we are on part 3. This is our final session, which addresses how participants can use their learning management system for assessment and communication. So we are really going to focus on those communication pieces as well as in Seesaw, the skills area. So we're going to look at skills and communication. I have also added a topic from part 2 that we were not able to get to yesterday, which we'll do shortly, which is additional resources and apps that integrate. Yesterday, in part 2, we looked at materials and resources, and in Seesaw specifically, we looked at posting to the journal, adding activities, and the community activities. And in day 1, we did from basic setup all the way through adding students and navigation. Our outline for today, we're going to finish our welcome and introductions, which we are doing now. We will look at additional resources that directly support in Seesaw, and these do come recommended from Seesaw, so we're going to dive into those, as well as quizzes and assessments, which is skills, and ways to do those through activities, grade books, and parent and student communications, or caregiver communications, or guardian communications. Before we begin, we want to always frame our thinking, so we are going to use a Zoom poll. And the Zoom polling feature is similar to what we did yesterday, except for now we have one for day 3. We want to know, last night we encouraged you to explore adding content and organizational structures. So, were you able to get in is probably the first question, which is where you can answer yes or no through either dabbled or your rockstar level, or you didn't get a chance. And secondly, what are you most excited to learn today? Are you excited to see how you might do some sort of assessment or activity assessment? Are you excited to learn about gradebook? Or are you most excited to learn about parent and family and community communications? So I'm going to launch this poll to gather our data and see where we are at. It will pop up on your screen. Please reply. I love that at 30 seconds, we already have 82% in. And so far, it's looking like most of us were able to dabble a little, or we feel like we're getting there, which is great news. I highly encourage continuing to explore. For those of you that didn't get a chance, there's a couple different things. First off, we need to make sure that you have access. So work with your district, make sure you have access to your account if this is the learning management system your district has chosen. Now, if we look at the second piece of the poll, which I'll share results now, it looks like a majority of us are excited to look more about student, parent, family, community, and caregiver and guardian communications. So over half of us want to really look at communications, which means we'll focus a lot on that today. So thank you for taking the poll. Remember, this is a Zoom poll. I highly recommend setting up all Zoom polls in advance of using Zoom if you're going to use a Zoom poll. Zoom polls must be turned on at your district level or in your personal account. Now, we want to highlight once again that we need to continue framing our thinking to support students, and this means all students, through social emotional learning, cultural responsive teaching, universal design for learning, which are all framed in with the instructional framework and your state criterion, all of which must be considered when adding content and doing appropriate best practice with our students, because we want to make this accessible and valuable to all students of all cultures using social emotional learning. So these links are here to help you. We highly encourage you to look at these links as well as dive in a little deeper to them as an instructional tool set. And with that, we are going to start talking about resources. Now, if the slide deck was shared, you will notice that the resources are not in your day 3 slide deck. And that is because I pulled this slide from day 2. So if you're panicked that you're not seeing the resources tab, that's okay, because it is in your day 2 slide deck, which you will get a copy of. Now, I wanted to highlight a few resources, but before I go there, before I talk resources, I want to make sure that we have a very brief conversation around appropriate use of the resources I'm about to share. I'm referring to apps that work in conjunction with Seesaw. These are things that are additional, that are optional, that necessarily don't have to be used. And with Seesaw, a lot of them are integrated with a link, which is great. Makes it a little easier. But before you use any apps or outside materials outside of your learning management system, I recommend 3 things. Number 1, talk with your team of teachers. So either in your grade band, other grade bands, or your content areas. Are these something that you all want to use, or is this just something you're interested in? And the reason I say talk with them is because we want consistency with students. If you're going to use it exclusively at 2nd grade, then maybe all 2nd grade teachers could benefit from using it. If you're going to use it building wide, maybe there's some that need to purchase a license. So have those discussions with your team before picking one to really add to Seesaw. Number 2, talk with your principal, your building administrator. They most likely have additional apps that they already pay for. So can you already integrate some of these? Are they already available for you? Talk with them and see what you have available, as well as what you're allowed to add, because there is some discussion that has to happen with privacy and data and everything else that really I don't want on my plate as a teacher too much. And finally, talk with your IT department if you have an IT department. So make sure that they are aware of what you're going to be adding or what you're requesting to add, because that way they can support you. Having support with the IT is very valuable. So I'm going to click this link to demo what apps integrate with Seesaw, and this does come from Seesaw. This is one of their articles that they shared in the Help Center, and I just highlighted directly from them. So they say all of these apps are compatible with Seesaw. You'll notice there's a giant list. You'll also notice they do not have links. However, one thing they do is they show you how to share them in Seesaw, which means how to use them for your students. For example, I'm a computer science person, so they are showing exactly how to share code.org activities with your students. Those of you to do the hour of code, that is a code.org activity. It's one of many. So it tells you in Safari, you may also use Chrome, you're going to click share, you're going to share to Seesaw, or copy the link and paste it into Seesaw, which means that students can access code.org resources. You have other things like Google Docs. In Seesaw, you can click the Add File button. You can directly select it from Google Drive. You can have them enter their account information to authenticate, which means you can add templates, etc. Kahoot. You can directly paste a link into their journal so they can play the Kahoot game. Now in Kahoot, you would probably have to select that they can play on their own time, unless you're planning to have them all play live with you in a synchronous session. We have things like Padlet, which is where you can share sticky notes, etc. So look how big this list is. These are all resources that Seesaw says can be compatible with them. Now, once again, talk with your team, which ones seem valuable, talk with your administrator, which ones are allowed, and talk with your IT, which ones will they support. So those three things should happen. But this is the list that we know works because Seesaw says this list works. I also encourage you to think, what activities will be engaging for my students? There needs to be a reason for using these. So when you pick an app or a resource that you want to use, which one and why? That should be in your mind. Which one and why? Does it meet with social emotional learning? Is this culturally responsive? Does this have anything to do with my state criterion? Can this help me be more UDL? Have those things when you're framing your thoughts. I do appreciate the large amount that are here that you can use with students. For example, Puppet Pals. I can see the value of using Puppet Pals right now already. Just wanted to highlight this list. You will have opportunity to look through this list and use it. This is not the session to really talk about which ones are the best. I don't have an opinion on that. I want you to go explore this list, decide which ones work best for you, for your team, for your administrator, for your school. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of you that use some of these already. Okay, Steve, I'm going to pause there. I know there's probably some questions. Let's see what they got before I go to the next one.
Yes, there are questions, but they're not related to what you're talking about, so let's hold off on them.
Okay. The next one takes you to the Washington OER Commons. If you've never been to this site, I highly recommend it. This is developed by teachers in Washington State that is hosted by OSPI on the OER Commons page. This one is directly for us. It is constantly being updated with the best resources, and you'll notice they even have a continuous learning section down below where you can organize it by content or you can organize it by audience. So professional learning for you, resources for families, supporting young learners. I love that there's 21 resources for supporting young learners, online learning guidance, and students with disabilities. You can switch to content areas, math, social studies, science, ed tech, English language arts. And I know we're working on the computer science one right now too. So be aware that these resources are available. They even have a world languages. So these are there for you. These are for you to use, and some of them are full activities you can do with your students. So please, please, please look at the Washington Hub. The next one I would like to highlight is an additional support. It's the C-STEP Teach Tech project. They were able to have teachers over the summer, and they will continue a little bit into the fall with a teacher help desk, which means if you need support specifically on your tools or using Seesaw, for example, there are other teachers who have experience with them available to take your call and support you. They have also created and accumulated other resources to help support you as well. And the last one, which I will click on, is the actual Seesaw Help Center. They've created a very nice platform with articles to help you use Seesaw, including things from talking about remote learning, how to build your class, families and troubleshooting. So I click families, okay? There's different options and resources here for you and your families as well. So wanted to make sure you had those links and resources. This slide deck, like I said, was in day 2 and will be emailed out tonight. So you'll get all 3 slide decks. This was slide 12 on day 2 if you wanted a very specific answer. Okay. With that, we're going to start talking quizzes and assessment, gradebook, as well as communication. And in Seesaw, it's all a little different, which we'll get into. So I'm going to go to my Seesaw account. Once again, to get to Seesaw, web.seesaw.me. I'm clicking login. Since I clicked teacher last time and I did not log out, it automatically took me back to my last course I was at. So this is exactly what we did yesterday. This is where we ended yesterday. I did not mess with this last night. And so I wanted to just demonstrate now the features that we can do. And we're going to start with the grading system. How does Seesaw grade? So let's start there. Well, what do they do? So if I'm looking at this page, I'm not seeing anything that says grades specifically. Nothing here that says grades. All I see from my main menu of option is journal, activities, inbox, and skills. That's what I have available. So the one thing that you can do is let's go ahead and click on skills because that's where the grading system kind of comes in. Seesaw uses it around skills that your students can obtain. And the activities can be associated to different skill sets. The interesting thing is with this, you get to add skills yourself. So right now I have not added a single skill, but I get to pick which skills I add. You'll notice there's always the help button in the corner if you need help. Now, you'll notice there's no skills tagged. I have nothing in my skills bank. So it tells me in my bubble, click here to add a new skill. So I'm going to click here and I get to start adding a skill. A skill is something that you get to align to and you get to tag to. And when I mean tagging, that means you associate an activity or work that they did to a certain skill that you added. So I can give this a name, and I'm going to actually just use the sample that they give just to make it simple to start with. So I'm going to change my class to a 4th grade class because that's what they're using. And I'm going to say, okay, reading comprehension. Says give it a name. The second one says give it a code. Well, they already gave it a code. So they said 4th grade, ELA .1. My recommendation to you, please use your Common Core standards, your Washington State Learning Standards, to enter your skills using their codes. So if I was to change this, which I will do, I can do operations, okay, which would be, let's do 4th grade again, 4th grade, operations observated thinking, and we can do 3A. So I can tie it to a specific skill. I can say this one is mathematics. I can say what category. I can say it's OA, so operations algebraic thinking, and you can describe it. So if I wanted to, I could describe operations and algebraic thinking, which I'm going to read now. Seeing exactly what it says. Operations algebraic thinking 3 multi-step word problems, and I'm using my phone, I just looked it up. Solve multi-step word problems posed with whole numbers and having whole number answers using any of the 4 operations. So solve multi-step word problems with whole numbers having whole number answers using any operation, any of the 4 operations. There we go. I've added a skill. I'm just going to actually call this 3 because that covers all of them. So operations, I could change this to be more specific. So math word problem. And this was 4th grade. And I could push save. Now it's ready. If I did this wrong, I could X out. Don't X out, it will not save your work. So if I push check, I've added a skill. Now I have a skill available. I can add more skills. So let's do a different one. So let's do another mathematics. Let's do 4.OA.2 and see exactly what that says. For OA2 is it looks like multiply or divide to solve word problems. Math, OA, multiply and divide. I may have those wrong, but that's okay. And added my skill. So now I have two skills added. They're in my skill bank. I'm going to make sure I change my class to be 4th grade just to be reflective of what I just did. But now I have skills available. Okay, it says you have 2 skills have been added to your class. Use these skills to tag activities or students' posts, assign a star rating, and get real-time understanding of your students' progress. So this is their grading system. They use skills and stars to understand their progress. So if I tag these 2 activities, I may not have an activity yet that needs tagged with them. I don't think I do, so I might have to make one. So I'm not going to tag an activity. I'm going to go to activities. I'm going to find one from my community. Okay, here we go. I went to 4OA. I searched math multiples. I need to find maybe a word problem. So this one's multiply by 4. So there's a lot of them available. And I could handpick from the community if I want, or make my own if I'd really like to. Okay, so I think I'm going to just use, oh, this teacher did fractions. This one did divide by 3 and 4. It's traditional worksheet stuff. I'll try this one, multiply by 4. I could watch the video to see if it works, see what I like.
To multiply by 4, we skip count by 4s. So I have 4 groups of 4 up here, and we're going to write down how many we have. 12. Now,
so view the video, make sure it's one that you want to add. You can heart it, which puts it in your library, and you can assign it to students. So it's now in my library. Here we go. I can click on it, and I can assign it to students. You may also copy and edit this activity. So I'm copying and editing. I can delete the video that they made and add my own video. I can add voice instructions. I could even change the template if I like. Notice I had the power to edit someone else's activity. So I'm going to assign this to my students. All of my students here. And it's now assigned. So I now have a math activity I've assigned to my students that they can do. And I can go to my skills, or okay, I can tag that activity with these skills. They haven't turned them in yet. So there we go, sample student. I did not put it in the math folder like I should have. Okay, let's see. There we go. Put it in the math folder and check. So I've assigned it to my students, added in the math folder, and now it's ready to go for my students. And I need to tag skills to it. So if I go to skills, I can tag them. I'm just not remembering if I have to have them have it turned in first. That's what I'm struggling. Yep, I believe they have to have it turned in first before I can assign the skill to it. So my sample student will need to complete this activity before I can continue. Okay, so the student completes it. They counted by fours. Step 1, you're going to skip count. So this one is 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. And this should help me answer my solutions here. I could have also grabbed some of these and put them in if I wanted to. So I could have just taken my hand and dragged them where I felt they needed to go. Okay. So I could also now drag these answers where they go down here. So notice how the students can reply to these by moving them around, even though I've already created the template. So it's been updating. There's my sample student. Now I have the ability here to add a skill. So they had to turn it in before I could add the skill. There we go, my 2 skills. This one was the 2. So I'm assigning it and I can give it a score. So it's out of 4 stars. So I'm gonna give them a 3 or maybe even a 4 and check. So they've now been graded with that skill. I could add a comment, I could heart it as the teacher, etc. So that showed the student turning it in. They had to access it in their math folder. It now is posted in their journal. I was able to add a skill. I'm going to pause there and see about questions. Steve?
Yes, there's a few questions. So number 1, is there a way that skills can be shared across a school or across a district, or would it be individual users who add their own skills?
I have not seen a way to share across. However, I have not yet been able to try it with a co-teacher. So in this instance, if you click the wrench, you can manage teachers and you can add a co-teacher. So it says here, all teachers have the same permissions. For example, your invite will be able to improve, parents, edit, and delete items, which tells me then you'd have access to those skills in my thoughts. But I have not tried it to 100% share that.
Okay, question is, can students see their skill rating, or is that only viewable by the teacher?
The skill rating students can see, yes.
And another one that came up, is there a way that you might recommend students could self-assess their own work?
Self-assess their own. What was the last word?
Yeah, their own work. So like, for example, could a student give themselves a rating on a skill, or is there a different strategy that a teacher might use?
So what they could do, they can't give themselves a rating on the skill. However, the student could always add their own comments, and they can also heart it, and they can also do a voiced comment like we've done before. So they could say, I feel I got, and share it when they post. So this sample student could go in here, they could edit it, and I could add a recording. On this assignment, I feel I deserved a 4 because, and so they could add their own feedback that way. Okay.
One other question about skills for right now. Can you opt to not give a skill rating stars?
Yes, you can choose not to assign skills at all. So for example, these ones here, I had the option to assign skill. I just left it blank. You could assign a skill So let's just do 3 and just push check. That skill was there, but left blank as well. I did not assign stars, but I did assign skills.
Thanks, Andrew. We're good for now.
Okay. So in my skills now that I've given some skills, this is what the grade book looks like. I don't really know if I feel comfortable calling it a grade book, but this shows exactly what it will show for you as a teacher. Students can see this view in their end, but they cannot see the view of any other students. They only see their data. Same thing with parents. So parents have access to see the skills as well. So they can see what skills are assigned. They can see what the star rating is. You'll notice it's color coded, which is 4 stars. Let's see what happens when I change it. Let's give a 3. It's a little bit lighter green. 2 is yellow, and it's not red, but it looks like maroon is 1 star. Okay, so a visual display for records. And that's called the skills view. And you can sort the skills by category, you can sort them by the subject, and you can pick just individual students as well. Okay, so let's pause there. What I'd like to show next is how to export. So this is a form of communication. We now have the ability to look at my students, and if I look at them all, so I'm unselecting, you'll notice I have the option to export these skills. So if I export them, it allows me to download a skills report, and I will show what it looks like. So it opened it up, it organized by the skill name, the skill code, and what the sample student was. So grade level, 1 was unrated and 1 received a 4, as well as the date. There is links, so these are direct links to that item in Seesaw for them to view. So think about a paper version of this. It shows you all information as well as links to go view that. You can email these, you can do anything else with them as you'd like, but it does allow you to download and export your skills reports. I can continue to add skills, enter any content area, and assign them to my students. It will continue to have this grade view and get bigger where they can scroll and manage. Okay, so that's exporting, which can be a form of communication as well.
Andrew, can you show how you got that report one more time?
Yeah, so I'm going to just go to my journal first. So from your journal, which is your homepage, you go to skills, which you can think of kind of like a grade book, but it's not. It's about skills. When you click skills, it takes all the data, populates it for your entire class as the teacher view. You can organize it by just students if you'd like. But when you're ready to export, it's at the bottom right next to plus skills, and it allows you to export. So just one button you click and it exports for you. I'm going to try something.
Andrew, there's a few more questions about that report if you're ready.
Yep.
Okay. Is there a limited number of skills that will show on a report?
I think it just keeps growing because it does vertical. So I do not think so. I think it will continue to grow.
Okay. And is there a way that you could have an export of just one individual student's skills?
Yes. Okay, there we go. So let's go back to that. So if you go to skills, if I change this to just my sample student and I push export, So I changed it and I just clicked on my sample student, so it's only showing my sample student's data. So you had to select the one student. You'll notice it is the one student here on my screen as well. That tells me that I've selected just the one student. So I was pretty sure, and I ended up being right. I just had to check it. In the activities, there was a way to assign skills in advance. So when you're creating an activity, if we were to create one, so I'll go to one of mine that I created yesterday. So we made this getting to know you activity yesterday. If I opened it up and then I edited it again, so I'm editing, under more options, at the very bottom was the place that you can add skills in advance. So you could add these skills ready for your students to know exactly what skill they're doing right when you assign the task. There we go. This assignment now has the skills attached to it, and I could assign it to my students, which means it's there ready for me. You can do it all in one shot. So once again, went to activities. I looked at the activity. Let's see if I can do it with the new one. I think I can. So look at the activity. You edit the activity. Under more options, skills is at the bottom.
Okay, there's a couple questions, Andrew, about what students would see during their experience. So would they be able to see those skills, just not the star ratings, as they're about to begin working?
Let's try it. Let's pick a new one. Let's just do it from scratch and see what happens. My belief is yes, but I don't want to say things that are wrong. So here we go. Mathematics in hand. I'm going to heart it. I'm going to not assign it yet because I want to copy and edit. I'm going to add those skills. So let's do 3. And then I'm going to save. Now I'm going to assign it to just my sample student and put it in the math folder. Sorry, I'm going so fast. Assign. Okay, there we go. It's now been assigned. I will click on my sample student to see what this looks like. I've never had Seesaw run this slow. There it is. So in my math folder, I think I made it bogged down. It did not assign for some reason. Let me go back. Okay, so we assigned it to class. Let's look in the math folder again. There it is. Okay, so he's going to add a response. And actually, I can see from here. So this is what students see as well. You can see the skill right here. When you click on the skill, you can see it shows that there's one skill attached. So the student hasn't responded to it yet. But if they add a response, they could add one of these responses to this or click on the activity itself. So, but it's not showing me which skill. It just says there is one attached as a student. Does that answer the question?
I hope so, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry for the slow loading. That was interesting. Okay, so skills are what you can add to help students know what they're being assessed on. It is the only system of grading within Seesaw. That's all they have, except for written responses, verbal responses, video responses that you can do as a teacher on what they submit. Don't forget, you can always do those responses. You can give formative feedback, everything. But their official system is around skills. Now, the second piece of today was around parent and family communication. I wanted to just talk about that again. So first things first, let's look at notifications. So if I go to my settings, okay, I can go to account settings, which parents and students can do as well. Don't forget, parents and students can have accounts. I'm wondering why this is going so slow. That's very interesting. Weird. There we go. It's popping up. So in your account settings, you'll notice you can see what kind of notifications you can get. Right now, I will receive email notifications. It does do push notifications to your apps if you have the apps downloaded, and it can give you tips and tricks. I don't need those, but those are available. So right now it's just email notifications. Parent and family, if you add them, let's look what they can have. If I go to my class settings, so students, what can they do? So right now, I have students can see each other's work. And I also have a sample student on, but that's not a big deal. Families, do you want to enable family access? Yes, I do. Do you want families to be able to like, comment, and share? And this is for their own student work. This is only for their students. This is not for other students. And if you remember from day one, to add families, they were able to be personally invited to just the students that are in that class. They cannot see any other students' work. But how they can do this is they can like things, they can share it, they can have comments, and as a teacher, you can require approval on those comments. So those are some things that family members can do. Also, for communication, you can have a class blog. You can turn on a class blog and it allows you to set up a public one using the Seesaw website. I don't have time to do that today, but it's available. And you can set up the blog. Other form of communication in the inbox here. This is where you can send announcements. So if you send student announcements, you select who this is sent to, all students, family members, or all students and family members. You can communicate to them right away. If they have the app, it will notify them through the app or through their email. Notice announcements here can get as big as you want. It keeps getting bigger. I'm just scrolling down. You can see my bar now lets me scroll. And you can add attachments. Now look at the attachments that you can add. Every tool in Seesaw is identical. They did this 6 sets of tools that are built in, and these are what you can use to add attachments. You could send them to a link, you could upload a document, you could send notes, etc. If parents have been added, they would get an email with this communication, as well as it's put inside of their message center inside of Seesaw. So notice it says student announcements, family announcements. We also have a notification center here. Notifications for me in this class. Let's see what I got. So I have something. Notifications are those ping notifications, the push notifications. Now, if I had an app on my phone, it would have sent me the notification there for me to check. Very similar to social media. It is very slow today. There we go. Okay, so I was able to send this notification. I sent this out this week in Seesaw and Seesaw office hours, and they will come up as a list here. It is very similar to a stream. The newest ones will be up top. So that's really parent-family communications. You may directly message families. Whoever is identified as that, once again, you push plus families, and then you can add them. As well as, oh yeah, there's no students in this one. So when you push plus families, you can associate a family with an individual student. Okay, Steve, other questions before we wrap up today?
Sure, there's one about the announcements. There's a question whether it goes to the student journals also.
Let's try it, but let's see if my class loads. Okay, don't forget when you're inviting family members, you can invite by email or mobile number or that print invite. So let's send an announcement. When you're in this, I've never seen it load this slow, so I don't expect this to happen. Very interesting. I don't know if it's going to let me, Steve.
That's okay. You can move on to something else.
So my belief is student announcements stay in the announcements inbox. I do not think it goes to their journals. There we go. Let's try it out. Yep, it says right here, all announcements you send to students will appear here. So in their inbox. Okay. Okay, any last questions before we go back for the final wrap up?
Nope.
Perfect. Now, what I would like to show is, first off, we want to get some feedback on this course through the synthesize and apply. So this is a link. You may always hold up your phone and use the camera option to have this automatically pop up with a go to this website, or you can click the link that is posted in the chat. Those links would take you to the same reflection survey where we can gather information on how to make this better for next time. We encourage you once again to take the on-demand courses. That way you can take things at your pace, as well as watch the videos that are pre-populated with very similar instruction, but organized by different content, and you can rewatch when you feel like it. So please feel free to register for the on-demand, and they are going to be open live on the 25th, and you would have until October 28th to finish them. And that's worth 6 clock hours versus this was worth 3. So you can get a total of 9. Once again, give a few minutes to reply to your synthesize and apply. Tonight, what we recommend for you is to please start connecting with your colleagues. Talk about grading and skills. How are you going to do that? Are you going to work together and write them up because you get to manually put them in? Are you going to discuss communication plans with your district? How are you going to use Seesaw to communicate? What works best for you? The biggest thing we can recommend is keep it consistent for your students. You must keep it consistent. That is a struggle everywhere. And so consistent communication, consistent systems and policies are really beneficial to them. Which tools are you going to use? Have fun exploring that resources list of things that we know work. For example, we know you can post links from Google Classroom into Seesaw. We know you can paste links from Seesaw into Google Classroom. It works. It goes both ways. And you can interact with both. So which one do you want to use? How are you going to integrate them? What is your prerogative? How are you going to do this? And we always encourage to look at the AESD website for additional resources and opportunities. This was LMS 101. We have LMS 101 on demand available for registration now. And in the coming future, we will have LMS 201. 201 is a deeper dive into integration and best practices and helping you select engaging activities, especially through social, emotional, and cultural learning. And with that, I'll see if there's any last questions that we can try to answer before we end.
There are a couple technical questions, but I think they'll be better addressed during the 201 sessions. So I feel like you've given a great overview of the system and people can start exploring.
Okay, well, we would like to thank you all for being with us today. And hopefully that got you a start into Seesaw. The best thing you could do is go explore. We'd also like to thank our interpreters as well as our captioner who have joined us for multiple sessions throughout this week. And thank you, Steve, for being my co-host, and Amy for answering the Q&A. Okay, we hope you have a great rest of your night, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.